probably in the next few minutes, because I'm going to show you how simple this procedure is and how easy it is to gain access to a switch or even a router this way. And this is why it's important to not only perform technical security features or application layer security features in your environment, but also physical security features, because if you don't have your wiring closet secured, anybody could plug in their console cable, restart your switch, and perform a password recovery. Now, for me to actually do this, before I perform my procedure, I'm going to try some simple passwords. So I'll try Cisco. Okay, that didn't work. So I'll try password. Okay, system admin, and it's like about 20 passwords that you could try before you actually want to try a procedure, because it'd be sort of a waste of time to try perform a password recovery procedure and the password is actually password. Seeing that I've tried a few passwords and it didn't work, I'll just start with the procedure and stop talking. Okay, so to begin, I'll power off my switch. So I'm powering off my switch right now. Okay, so as you can see, the my connection just went off. And now, before I power my switch back on, I'm going to press the mode button in front of my 2950 switch, and this is going to interrupt the bootloader sequence and basically tell my IOS not to load. Okay, so now we're inside this mode that we use to perform password recovery. This is a mode that doesn't allow you to perform any configuration tasks. It's just a mode that allows you to interrupt the normal boot sequence inside the switch's bootloader, so you can perform various administration tasks. Now, the idea is to actually rename a configuration file that actually has the password on the switch. So I'm going to do that. First command I type is going to be flash init. This is going to basically initialize the flash, right? Because I need to basically access this configuration file out of what we call flash memory. So as soon as my flash is initialized, I'm going to use a command called load helper. This command is going to allow me to use certain help features like rename command and show me the directory command, so I can actually see the file. Okay, so I'm going to use a command directory flash just so I can see the contents of my flash directory. Now, this is the file that we need to rename, config.txt. We need to rename this so that the operating system doesn't find it when I reload this switch. And the reason why I want to rename it is because, well, if it doesn't find the config.txt file, it's just going to load up into a factory default state, whereas the switch will be operating just as if I took it out of the box for the first time. Alright, so of course I want to have a password configured. So to do that, I use the rename command. I'm going to say rename flash config.txt. Before I continue, it's good to know that although I'm renaming the configuration file, all the configurations on the switch is not lost. I can actually go back and rename this configuration file back to what it was so I can retain all my settings. Okay, so let me just put it out there. Performing a password recovery does not erase all of your data on your switch or even your router unless you do it correctly. Unless you do it incorrectly, then you lose your data. But if you follow these simple steps, you should have all your data intact. So I'm going to say rename flash config.txt to flash, and I'm just going to call it something else, config.old. Okay, now that I've done that rename procedure, that's basically all I need to do in here. So I'll run the command boot, and this is going to load my iOS image. Okay, so while this is loading, it's basically initializing the image out of flash, and it's going to look for this config.txt file, and it's not going to find it. So basically, I'm now looking at basically almost a brand new switch. It's actually going to ask me to initially configure my switch as if I never used it before. Alright, but I'm going to say no because, well, we don't use the setup when we talk Cisco, right? So, any minute now. Okay, so I'm going to type in no here, and I'm going to get started. As you can see, the hardest part is done. I now have access to my switch, so I'm close enough to the $10 that I'm going to win if I crack inside the switch. Now, technically, I've already won because he didn't say that I need to keep all the settings. But just to keep the fair game, I'm just going to get those settings back. Let me just prove to you that the switch has no configuration in it. If I do a show running configuration, as you can see, These are default configurations on a switch. Even the host name is default. Right, there are no settings on the switch ports. Now, for me to get those configuration settings back, I need to basically use the same command I used in the previous mode. So I'm going to go back and say rename flash config.old to flash config.txt. By renaming this file, I actually get my old configuration settings back into Flash. But although I get these settings back into Flash, they are still not loaded into something called RAM, Random Access Memory. RAM is actually the memory that I'm using right now inside this switch's interface. So for me to actually load the information out of this file into RAM, there's another command that I'll need to use, and it's the copy command. So I'll say copy what's in Flash, what's in this config.txt file, to my system's running configuration. And as soon as I issue that command, you'll see that even the host name on this switch will change. Now there's host name Catalyst 2950. So I've now restored my switch configuration. So if I do a show running configuration now, I can see all the settings that that the switch had, like DHCP settings, which we'll cover in the next video, and spanning tree settings, and my switch port configuration on all the switch ports. So we have our settings back. Something interesting that we could see also is the password. This is what he said I couldn't hack into, but now I have access to actually seeing the password because he didn't even bother to encrypt his line password. Let's see if his enable password is encrypted. So I'll perform the command show running configuration, and well, he has an enabled secret defined. So I could use some hacking programs and applications to copy this hash and basically decipher this information. But to cut a long story short, I'll just change it entirely, seeing that I'm actually inside the switch. I'll go into global configuration mode, type in enable secret, and I'll just change the password to "you are a loser." Alright, so that's the enable secret. Capital U, so in case I forget what the password is, tell me what I put. And I'll just change the console password to the same thing. So password, you are a loser. Okay, so password configured, and I'll save this configuration. And I've now successfully performed a password recovery on a Catalyst 2950 series switch. Just for the fun of it, I just come out of this, and let's pretend that this guy who told me I couldn't get in is standing behind me, and he's now, and I'm gonna say, man, look, whew, I couldn't crack it, I give up. But could you log in? Let me just see his settings. So he comes in and he tries the password he had. Doesn't work. And he says, oh man, I could have swear that's the password I put. I may need to send this switch back to the manufacturer or hire somebody to perform a password recovery because I can't do that stuff. I was just testing.